No, I genuinely think that MSNBC has a certain take or lens on candidates, and they prioritize certain things. Let's call it time in DC or political relationships, and then they were confused by my candidacy initially. I think that was the initial explanation. As for why they never change,
Yeah.
like no, that part, I would just say that they're a bit too institutionalized, and I do think that there are some stakeholders in that organization that favor a couple of candidates, most likely. Well, I mean, I believe that the family that controls Comcast, which I think owns the network, has contributed or has hosted an event for Joe, and I believe there's some Buttigieg supporters there too. So that's my feeling, is that there's some stakeholders there who favor certain candidates, and there's an institutional bias towards people with DC experience and against people that seem very dissimilar from that. Those are my best bets.
Well, we're going to prove them really wrong and make them look really bad. Like you said, I remember before in one of your press interviews. But what is one of your strongest personal qualities, in your opinion, and what's a quality that you want to develop further, personally or professionally?
Oh, so something I'm proud of is that, like, I really don't get too full of myself because I don't know, man, why that is. It's like maybe because I was just so used to being like the runty kid or something. So like I'm still pleasantly surprised when people are happy to see me, as an example. So I think that's a good quality. Uh, I joked with the New York Times editorial board the other day that one of my qualifications to be president is I don't socialize very easily. As in, I don't like just become accustomed to it and be like, of course you have to, like listen to me or treat me in a special way. So I think that's positive in most respects. Something that I want to work on, I think it's true for all of us, is I have a file of things that I'm grateful for. I just need to become more consistently appreciative and grateful for all of the wonderful things in my life. I'm just so fortunate, and I lose sight of that on a regular basis. Like when you're just out there doing work, you just lurch from one goal to the next, and you say, okay, now I have to do this, now I have to do that. I mean, big picture, this campaign's a wonderful experience. I meet incredible people like you all. At this point, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of Americans are embracing the vision. I mean, it's like the most singular experience of my life, and I wish that I appreciated it on a moment-to-moment basis more than I did. So that's something I'm always working on.
I think we all personally struggle with that. I know I do all the time. Okay, so you quit law, you started a nonprofit called Star Giving, and then you founded Venture for America. Who or what was your greatest influence in this history of the strong desire to give back to people and make the world a better place?
Well, Star Giving was a for-profit, though it turned out being a not-for-profit in the sense that it never made any money. So I grew up on a very steady diet of fantasy novels, comic books, science fiction novels, Native American biographies. And so there was almost always a very strong set of protagonists and a moral compass, and you were going out trying to achieve some goal or save the world or a quest. And so I joked with someone when I was practicing law that when I was growing up, I didn't dream about being the scribe. I dreamt about going into the woods and killing the dragon. So I think some of those narratives growing up influenced me, where I said, you know what, like you should actually try and do some good or solve a problem or do something you're proud of, and not do something that's purely mercenary or for personal financial gain. Because the characters that were just out for money were almost always the bad guys in those books or stories. And when I did make a little bit of money in my 20s, I found that my happiness wasn't really attached to my income or my material comforts in a real way. And that was a splash of water in my face, where I said, okay, if that's not what drives me and gets me up in the morning, then what is? And so I started digging into that more fully when I tried to make these organizations happen.
Paget, your last question.
Oh, my last question. Okay. All right. So, oh no, I have to pick. Okay.
Oh, no, don't worry, Paget. You can get the other one to me on Twitter. I'll answer it that way.
Well, I want to know what is one of the most defining moments from your childhood, or when you were in college, or that made you who you are today, if you can pinpoint that.
I told the story in another context. You probably heard it, but when my dad did come home from IBM angry at the fact, and he said that if you can't invent anything anymore at IBM, then they make you a manager. So he said this to me, and I was 14 or so. And I remember hearing this and thinking, like, is that right? And then I thought, wow, I would hate to have my career defined that way. And so even at that point, it planted these seeds that I wanted to try and do something on my own, because I didn't want my career to be shaped by whether someone above me liked me or didn't like me. And then if they didn't like me, then I would spend years and not get promoted. Like, that seemed like a very, very tough, crummy situation. And so my dad telling me that story when I was 13 or 14 planted these seeds where I said, wow, I really want to be in a position to control my own professional path and destiny, which is obviously not an easy thing. It's a very rare thing. I'm incredibly fortunate that has happened to a large degree in my career, but that did stick with me, obviously.
And that's what you're helping other people to do in the future as well. So thank you, Andrew. All right.
Don't worry, ping me on Twitter with the other questions. But yeah, now I really do want everyone to have a greater degree of agency and autonomy and ownership, because so many of us get plugged into these organizations that end up down, and we get rid of certain parts of ourselves in order to adapt. And that's cool. I mean, organizations need to exist, and people need to come in and join them and become part of them. But that shouldn't necessarily be for everyone if you have something else that you want to try and achieve.
Thank you, Paget. We are now moving on to the youngest member, the youngest member of the panel. Kai just got out of school. His mom said that he could stay with us for a little bit. And Kai, I'll start the timer for you, brother.